In our city, we just came through a period of incredible change. Demographic shifts have culturally changed us forever, and we also just came through a housing crisis and a financial crisis, the likes of which we have not seen in this community for generations. And part of our change is that we are rapidly growing. In fact, every week we add about 359 people to our community. On a monthly basis, that's about 1,864 people, or about every year, it's about 22,370. But you see, most of our growth is due to babies because we are a young community. But we are also the only place left in Ohio where more people are moving in than moving out. So I want to talk about that first. The smallest part of our growth, or about 24%, is due to more Americans moving into our region than moving out. And here is a map that shows that pattern. In fact, this map depicts all of the move-in and move-outs with Franklin County in the last decade, and all of the red lines show move-outs, and the black lines are showing net move-ins. And the point of this image is that Columbus is attracting people from mainly a 250-mile radius. When people leave Columbus, they generally leave Ohio, and they're leaving the Midwest altogether. But our attractiveness doesn't just stop at the state line, at least that's the case for American-born individuals. And now an increasingly and larger percentage of our growth, about 26%, is because of people moving here from very far away. You know, we have not been known as a city of immigrants for a very long time. And starting in 1970 as a base map, you can see that only 2% of our county was foreign-born. It used to be said that the only foreign diversity in Columbus were people who attended Ohio State University or maybe who were teaching there. But I now want you to see how this map is going to begin to change in front of your eyes. By 1980, the percentage of foreign-born increased to just 2.8%. By 1990, it was still a very low 3.4. But by 2000, things began to change. And during that previous 10 years, 32,000 foreign-born immigrants moved into Franklin County, bringing our percentage to 6%. And just 9 years later, the percentage had jumped to 9%, swelling to more than 105,000 foreign-born. Now, if you compare 1970 on the left and 2009 on the right, you can clearly see the impact of a 500% increase in foreign-born. But imagine for a moment if all of Franklin County's foreign-born residents lived in their own municipality, they would make Ohio's 6th largest city. And when you look at our region, there are now more than 132,000 individuals who were not born in the United States, and 86% of this group was not living in the United States in 2000. They are a very recent group to the United States. And within the city of Columbus itself, we are now at a 100-year high with regard to the percentage of our community that is foreign-born. So what will it mean if this rate of change continues? And what does it mean that more people are moving here from, say, Africa or Central America than just from nearby places like Cleveland and Dayton? We are, in fact, a growing city of diverse neighborhoods, and they are getting more diverse because the world is coming to Columbus. And now looking at the continent of origin just since 2000, you can see the diversity is not only significant, but in fact, it is more typical of a highly developed immigrant city like that of a New York or Los Angeles that had been experiencing immigration from many places for long periods of time. People, in fact, are coming to Columbus to find opportunity. So I want to talk with you for a minute about that word opportunity, to see if everyone in our community is experiencing it equally. Ohio State University's Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity created opportunity maps of Franklin County. They took 17 data sets and layered them across these 4 broad categories. So neighborhoods, jobs and access, health and safety, and education. And they said, what would it look like if we looked at all 17 things at the exact same time? Would patterns reveal themselves? And in fact, they did. On the left, you can see Franklin County, and on the right is a deep dive inset into the neighborhoods around downtown Columbus. The darker the color on the map, the greater the level of opportunity. And the first thing that becomes clear is how close some of our highest opportunity neighborhoods are adjacent to some of our lowest opportunity neighborhoods. And what the Kirwan Institute research suggests is that for most of us, opportunity, meaning whether or not we graduate from high school, or that we become a victim of crime, or that we develop diabetes, is about two things: where we're born and where we continue to live. And in fact, we are not experiencing opportunity equally. Now we're going to factor in race. On the map on the left, you see the Asian population, and on the right, the white population. Each dot is sized according to the size of the people who live in that census tract. What becomes clear is that 70% of the Asian population is living in the highest opportunity neighborhoods, and for the white population, it's about 50%. And now we compare the Hispanic population on the left with the African American population on the right. What becomes clear in these two comparisons is that the Hispanic population is living in more moderate opportunity neighborhoods, while the majority of African Americans are concentrated in the lowest opportunity neighborhoods. Many of the struggles of the Black community in Columbus is due to the fact that too many of our households of color are physically removed from where opportunity exists. Now we're going to look at poverty. And again, we'll start in 1970 as a base. The poverty rate in Franklin County was 10% and lower than the US rate of 13%. We had 85,000 people living in poverty, and it was concentrated in a few neighborhoods closest to downtown. And again, watch how the map begins to change. By 1980, the poverty rate increased to 12.3%, and 104,000 were living in poor. By 1990, the rate had gone up slightly to 13%, but due to increased population growth in Franklin County, we added about the same number to the ranks of the poor than the previous decade. And at this point, our poverty rate matched that of the US. But the 1990s told a very different story, and the poverty rate in Franklin County actually fell 1.4 percentage points. And despite the fact that we added 107,000 people in the 1990s, we essentially added no one to the ranks of the poor in our community. But the 9 years following this last census tells a very different story, as the poverty rate jumped 6.6% and the numbers of poor swelled to 205,000. And at this point, our poverty rate was 3 percentage points higher than the US rate. Now we'll go back and compare 1970 on the left and 2009 again on the right. Three very obvious things happen. For one, the geography of poverty now consumes a much larger area of our community because poverty has grown 3 times faster than population. And two, we've seen an increase in concentrated poverty. Those are the neighborhoods depicted in the darkest of green and blue, and that is where the quality of life really begins to break down for everyone who lives in those neighborhoods. And three, we've begun to see the suburbanization of poverty, where previously middle-class neighborhoods have become vulnerable. And by the way, this is a national phenomenon, not just unique to Columbus. But I also want to take a moment to mention the benchmarking study that was done a year ago, which highlighted the fact that Columbus had two things that were inconsistent: high poverty and low unemployment. Some of that was due to the fact that many of the jobs that had been created simply didn't allow people to work, but still be above the poverty line. So it is clear that we are experiencing rapid change in Columbus. And while we do face many challenges, we are in fact faring better than most places. We are growing, becoming more diverse, and despite some increases in poverty, the current Columbus unemployment rate is now the 5th lowest out of the 50 largest US cities. As a smart and open city, we must use what we know about how the community is changing and turn our perceived weaknesses into strengths. And just 2 weeks ago, the New York Times Magazine reported on Ohio's strong recovery, and I quote, "Ohio's economic future will be largely tied to the new economy that Columbus represents: banking, insurance, management consulting, state-of-the-art medical facilities, high-tech manufacturing, and research. But it went on to say that equally important, Columbus is a city where its citizenry has invested in its own future through things like infrastructure, parkland, fiber optics, and quality of life improvements. As the bicentennial year quickly comes to a close, it's only fitting that we take stock and look at where we are and also realize that we'll never be able to make it like it was. But just as Mr. Koch had it right 33 years ago about his city, we have gotten it right about ours. Because Columbus will do more than just survive these changes, it can thrive. And so I thank you for all that has been done to allow our community to not just change, but to continue to thrive. Thank you.